Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Katie Buckingham. I'm our curator here at Museum of Glass. And it's my pleasure on this Mother's Day afternoon to introduce Gas-Filling Tube Suckers, our visiting artists for the week. Let's give them a big hand. They've been working really hard this week. GFTS Neon is a collective of 3 artists, Dani Kaes, Galen Turner, and Jacob Willcox. They're all local here to the Pacific Northwest, and each of them has made a lot of contributions to the neon scene here and our world here in the Pacific Northwest. I think we figured out Wednesday on the first day of their residency that Jacob and Dani in particular have been kicking around the museum for the last 10 years, so half of our life, as we celebrate our 20th anniversary here at the museum. They gave a really impactful demo. Last year, we were fortunate here at the museum to host an international glass conference called Glass Art Society. And these 3 guys gave one of the most impactful demos of the week, which was a neon demo. And it sort of spawned their collaboration. And we host here at the museum between 25 and 30 residencies a year, and we host a call for applications. These guys applied as a new collective for a residency this year, and they were one of 4 applications selected out of about 90. So we've been really excited. Their work here this week has focused on making forms that are outside of the commercial possibilities of neon, so we've been having a lot of fun. And they're here to tell you a little bit about their work and how neon is made. Before we get started, there is one more quick congratulations. Dani, we're all here. You guys have to know about Dani that today she is missing her graduation. She is graduating today with a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and would rather be here with us. So if you could give her a quick round of applause, we're really proud of her. But we're here. There is a phone number up on the screen where you can text us all your questions, and we'll be doing a Q&A at the end of the talk, but I'm going to let them take it away. You guys, we've been so excited to have you here this week. It's been a real pleasure. So without further ado, I'll hand this over to whoever's first.
Okay, so we're going to kind of run through this. We are a collective. We do collaborate quite often, but we each make our own artwork with our own individual voices. So we're going to go through and talk about our individual style and maybe how that comes through in the collective itself. So I like to make big, massive pieces that flash and move around a lot. I use a lot of animation in my work. So this piece is a collaboration I did with my friend Audrey. It is all about the Denny's on 4th Avenue in Soto. We really tried to get the feeling of being in that Denny's at about 3 in the morning. A lot of my work is modular, so pieces have more than one life. I think neon should remain a temporary medium, but it can have many life forms. So this piece actually got repurposed into this piece, which is an ode to Buster, my favorite little bar dog. Then moving on, this is a piece that we did at Gather. Jacob and I are alumni of the Hilltop Artist Program, and they put on an amazing show curated by Trenton Kyocho. This piece is called Clyde's Bargain Bin Boots. It is 4 feet by 5 feet, and it has 55 cowboy boots. I ended up making about 100 to go into this piece and selected kind of the best ones, but not to get rid of the seconds. This piece is called Final Sale Extra Bargain, and it's all the seconds. So I try to utilize everything that I make one way or another. And then a lot of what I've been doing now is what I call stuffing tubes. So I take little individual pieces of tubes and then shove them inside of another big tube so they are loose in there. This is a bit of a better close-up of all those little individual pieces. I started this body of work when I worked at Western Neon in Seattle. I saved all of the glass from my first major major signage that I did, and I shoved them into a tube so I could have a little memento of kind of my first year of being like an actual neon bender. And these are loose in there, so you can shake them up, and they make a lovely little maraca noise. And then I took a break from a place called Pilcher Glass School for a long time, but I have been excited to be exploring that avenue professionally again. And just this last year, Jacob and I were up there quite often. Galen came kind of at the end of the summer, and we ended that beautiful session with this collaboration that we did called Two Hearts, Twice the Love, I think is what we named it. And so with that, I will hand over to Jacob so he can talk about his work.
Yo, what's good? I'm Jacob Willcox. I'm from the Tacoma, Washington area, and I currently live and reside in Seattle, Washington, where I work as a full-time commercial sign vendor. I don't think I'll show any signs, but I will show some neon artwork I've made over the past 2 or 3 years. So the first piece we have here is called No Parking, and it's a piece thinking about temptation and risk and reward. I do not have a video of it, but the no parking sign flashes. And I got to give a big shout out to my boy Anthony Toomey, who helped me carry that big parking block into my Subaru Outback in Alfred, New York. It's pretty heavy, and it did not fit in the back of my car. And then I like to make some goofy artwork. So this is just some fun artwork. We all love the Stussy S, Super S. You know, I've heard 100 different titles for it. But this piece itself it's a mixture of pre-bought glass, but as well as glass that I melted in a furnace when I was taking some chemistry classes in college. And so that's the purple glass you see is called blurpaline, and it uses a seafood preservative, sodium tripolyphosphate, as the colorizer and opacifier in that glass. And then here's some more of that glass work that I was doing where I was really focusing more on the glass chemistry. And that's what I call toothpaste glass, and mixed with some concrete, melted in a kiln. And then this was actually my first glass project in college, so I always like to show it because I feel like it was a big turning point for me. It was a moment where I transitioned from traditional glass making and just making vessels, shapes, and forms without really intent. And this was also the first glass that I had mixed from raw batch. And I was emulating a glass that absorbs light, and I call this piece Skunky Light. And this is a full room installation. I was using ceramic slab rollers to make my own sheet glass. And then this piece right here is called, what did I call this piece? Oh yeah, Life's a Game, Player Get Played. That was the title of the show as well. And when working with neon, I typically like to reference indulgent spaces as my inspiration. So a lot of gambling, casinos, you know, corner stores are a lot of the reference I pull from in my neon. And this was the most recent piece I had made and was in the Tacoma Art Museum at the Gather show that Dani was talking about earlier. It's called Going Up, and this was right after I had started working as a commercial sign vendor, and so I was working very large in scale at work, and so I wanted to take that into a gallery, and it's called Going Up, and it's kind of just talking about how, you know, going from point A to point B is never just a straight arrow. It's, you know, lots of loops and turns on the way. And then this piece right here, really fun piece to make. It's called Beer Run, and it's where you get an 18-pack and you empty them and you put it in a kiln to emulate the feeling and light it up with some neon. And this was probably the last glass piece I made, strictly relying on glass prior to finding neon, and it's called Duo, where I was really just thinking about composition, shape, form, and line. And I think we're gonna pass it off here to Mr. Galen McCarty-Turner.
I just wanted to take a second to introduce Gatron as I first met him, and talk about a little bit about the collective as a whole and how we kind of all came together. Jake and I met 12 years ago, just thereabout. We met in the Hilltop Artist Program. So Jacob and I are traditionally trained glass blowers. I interned here at the MOG for about 2.5 years. Jacob did as well. But I never really wanted to be a glass blower. I think it's too hot, and I have a really hard time translating my artwork through glass. And so an older MC here who has tragically passed away, Greg Owen, knew my interests, and he actually ended up introducing me to Galen from the Science of Art program, and he took me under his wing, even though I just like showed up on his doorstep one day. And then when Jacob got into neon, we really wanted to encourage him to pursue the medium. It's not an accessible medium. It's very hard. It's very frustrating. And we kind of really fell together and found a groove that really works for us. And so even though we are a new collective, we have been working together and supporting each other for years. And it was really only the Glass Art Society when we had to force ourselves to name the group where we became a collective. So just to give a shout out to Galen for opening his doors and giving us space to a medium that is traditionally very, very closed off. So, and then.
Yeah, Galen is great. He has a motto of, I dare you to come back. And that has really kept a lot of people into the medium. So I just got to say shout out to Galen for the open doors and, you know, inspiring a new generation to keep working with this medium.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Bike jump is up first if you want to talk about bike jump.
All right. Well, my name is Galen Turner. I don't even quite know what we got going on here, but this is bike jump. I've been known to be Tacoma's crappiest daredevil. We will build a structure such as this, about 200 feet. Noah's big hand in this. He does all the posters. We advertise it as 3 inches of sheer terror, but it's about 2 5/8 once we measured it out. It's all about the build-up rather than the actual stunt of jumping a bicycle through the neon. We will strap crappy fireworks to the bicycle and wear a cape, and what else do we do? All kinds of things. Yeah, I guess this was Dani's birthday. We've done this at the Museum of Glass before. There's the Museum of Glass one, yeah. This last time we put train horns coming out of either side, so it looked like it had ears, and has a big Jacob's ladder coming out of the top, so it shoots sparks, and about over 200 light bulbs that chase each other, and usually around 200 feet of neon. Yeah, you can see the sparklers on my helmet. We try to make it as craptastic as possible. It's really just supposed to be whimsical and fun. But yeah, just kind of whenever I get a little wild hair up my backside, I decide to go put this thing together again. And here's a suck bubble, just like we lit up. Call them a suck bubble because that's about what they are. Is a bubble and you suck them in. That one's got a little bit of purple glass and a nice little fade. And I think we got argon, neon, and maybe a tiny drop of mercury in it there. Yeah. More plasma. I used to have to hand carve the backboards. I have a friend now that has a CNC machine, and it's just not worth the time and energy to hand carve them. Okay. Another one, neon with a drop of mercury. That's all clear glass. It's kind of amazing how many different colors you can get out of clear glass. In the industry, we'd never put neon and mercury together, but as artists, we like to try to get as many colors for free as we can. This is one that will be up in the window out front shortly, we hope. Traditional white, 6500 Snow White, and the closest we could kind of get to at the time for some blackout tubing. A lot of times we use blackout paint to separate letters. This way we actually made the glass black, and it's kind of a hard sell with customers to make neon and tell them, oh, we're gonna not let you see light in certain areas and have you be able to see it in others, but I think it's a nice effect. Some more little scooter sticks and other whatnots. Most of all of this is hand-pulled tubing. I think the little green part and the blue part are the only parts that are actually manufactured glass. with us being inundated with glass blowers here in the Northwest, like where we're at right now, it's a real beautiful luxury to be able to pull your own glass tubing. It's really quite, it doesn't make sense as an artist to do this, or especially in the industry, but it really creates pieces that are very unique that you would never get to see anywhere else. One of the things that we're always trying to achieve is brown. Brown is the hardest color to make in neon, which is kind of weird. It's so easy to make in every other medium, but it is not an easy color to make a true brown. So that's kind of like the holy grail that we're always chasing for. Yeah, more scooter sticks and purple. Purple glass is another thing you won't see very much. You'll see a blue tube with a red-coated phosphorus on the inside, which then makes the purple. But you will not see purple neon tubing for some reason. That was a takeaway. Yeah, this monstrosity. Normally you make a, what 12, 18 feet longest tube, kind of 15 feet is kind of like where you're supposed to stop a tube in length. This is 2 units. I don't even want it. It's like probably close to 40 feet, maybe 45 feet of neon tubing there. And once again, it is all hand pulled. No, there's a little manufactured glass in there, but mainly hand pulled. Also, it can't process this normal. You would have to kiln this. Everything's so close together that if we processed it, the electricity would want to jump through the glass and go to the other tube and it would break. So we had to kiln this, and very unusual, very difficult piece to make. It's not the greatest, most dynamic looking thing, but very, very challenging. All right, that's my last piece, so we'll end on that. Okay.
Just like Galen talked about, one of the things that we've been really blessed with experimenting with is making our own tubing. And again, me and Jacob come from a very traditional background of glass blowing, and so we've been having a really fun time kind of mixing those things together. Up until the 1940s or thereabout, all neon was hand-pulled, just because the manufacturing wasn't quite there yet, but now all of our tubing commercially is machine-drawn. And so while we are taking a step back in terms of going back to hand-pulled tubing, we're also trying to move forward and doing some things that have never been done in neon before, like adventuring tubing and some wig-wag tubing, some carts. And if Jacob wants to say anything about hand-pulled tubing, I'll pass it over to you. He's our tube master, hand-pulled tube master, so if you want to end on anything.
I like pulling tubes. They're very fun to make. I've had over the past year or so, I've really went down a rabbit hole of pulling tubes isn't something that's necessarily challenging in the hot shop in terms of if you're trained and know what you're doing, but to get them for specifically what we are doing, we have very specific specifications that we have to make to use for neon. We're going for about 1 millimeter thin of sidewalls, and that's something that's very hard to achieve while creating a uniform pull. And after our lunch break, we will be moving into making some rainbow tubing, and you'll kind of see the setup that we use, and we'll actually be pulling some tubing on the floor. And over there, you can see we have a big pile of tubing that we've pulled over this residency. And we just got to give a big shout out to Olympic Color Rods and Gaffer Glass USA, who have graciously sponsored this residency and given us plenty of colors to explore rainbows, different hues and tones that are not commercially available in the neon industry. And one of our biggest goals with this residency is kind of bridge the gaps between the neon and glass communities. So I just had to give a big shout out to our sponsors for allowing us to explore all these different colors that we may not have been able to do.
Thanks, you guys. Can I give them another round of applause? It really has been an amazing week. So we're going to take some questions, and you guys, the questions are sort of bucketed in two categories as they fly, and there's a few like neon nuts and bolts. So should we start with can we talk a little bit more about neon and then talk about your work specifically? What order do you want to go in? Okay, I have a few questions that we're asking about the difference between neon and plasma.
It depends on who you ask, but plasma is just ionized gas in a lot of ways. I mean, fire, like the color of fire is plasma. This is plasma. So the sun, technically neon commercially is plasma, but in our industry, again, it depends on who you ask, but the way that we kind of determine what is neon, what is plasma is either the number of electrodes. Neon is about completing a circuit. So neon tubing has 2 electrodes, plasma tends to only have 1, and basically how power is introduced. So here, this is what's called a plasma driver. It is introducing plasma straight down or straight out. Radio frequencies is used a lot in plasma. It's basically using that to ionize the gas itself, whereas neon is using high voltage electricity from both directions to ionize gas.
Somebody else was wondering what the difference is between commercial neon and handmade neon. Can you do both? Like, have you guys worked commercially?
Yeah, we do commercial work. We do commissions. Jacob, especially right now, he's still working in the sign business. I left the sign business a few years ago after working there for about half a decade.
All the signs out there, all signage out there needs service at some point, especially during the winter. Glass is wonderful because it won't rust, and we had a tube that was over 70 years old in the shop that I was taught in, and looked the same way as the day it was made. But it being outside, windstorms such as that, they will go down or off gas or break, and there has to be somebody out there that's willing to crawl on a building and repair it. So and I got to put food on the table too.
The next part of the question is, what is the most challenging piece you've created?
Oh, I think we're all going to have different answers. A circle is kind of the hardest thing to make, just like as a broad blanket. A perfect circle doesn't seem like it would be hard, but you have to do it in really short sections. So those are always a challenge. A lot of my challenge, because I use mostly fun shapes, comes from assembly. Like that boot piece is 4 layers of neon, and neon being electrical circuits, they don't really like that. It was 6 circuits on top of each other, and so there was managing interference and managing resistance and that sort of thing is always a challenge.
For me, specifically, the hardest thing I've ever worked on, not necessarily an art piece, but something I do consider as like an extension of my work, was a sign that I had to make that was getting shipped down to Inglewood, California. It was for a Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, and I had to make it was a double-sided sign, 25 by 25 feet, and it was going about 50 feet up in the air, and it had about the final count for the amount, like the pieces of neon on each side, was about 96 units. And so it was 96 separate pieces of neon on one side, so totaling 192. I'm not very good at math currently. But pretty close to 200 pieces of neon, and then crating it and shipping it. And thankfully, all the pieces made it there without breaking, and we got to see it earlier this year, and it was a very crazy thing to see.
Hardest piece for me is probably doing another open sign. It's hard to put a new twist on an open sign and make it enjoyable for me to make.
Somebody was wondering, Galen, what's so hard about the color brown?
There's no such thing as brown light. So neon is not a light, well, the color for neon is filtration. For the most part, like neon is always going to be red. It has to do with the size of the atom. Argon is always going to be a light lavender. Krypton is white. Xenon is a bright, bright blue, very thin line. You make it green with a little bit of oxygen, but brown as a light doesn't really exist. So you're playing both sides of a wavelength spectrum. So you want to play with the red and the blue on the opposite sides of the wavelength. So what you're trying to do is filter certain amounts of light out to make brown, which is very hard to make.
Easiest way to go about it is a rattle can of spray paint.
Over a white tube.
All right, we have 2 more questions. And if anybody has a question that isn't texting, raise your hand and we'll get you in here. But Morgan is wondering if you can explain fake or faux neon and how or if it has impacted your work.
Ho, so yeah, I do, like we said earlier, I do work in the signage industry. And so faux neon is usually marketed as flex neon LED. And so what it is plastic tubing filled with light emitting diodes, or also called LEDs. And they are made out of cheap plastics and arsenic that have, they're made for planned obsolescence. So they are made to last 3 to 4 years and very bad for the environment. And they just will dim out very quickly, not light up very well, where real neon is glass with an electrical charge filled with noble gases. And if Galen has anything to add to that.
I got one thing. The thing about, what did you call it, L-wire? No, flex wire or whatnot. There's a time and a place for everything, absolutely. LEDs, great, but my little bit of beef with the flex wire is that they rob the art of neon signs directly, usually. They, like we'll take a picture of a flamingo and then just do it in their medium, as opposed to making their own version of it. And that kind of rubs me a little wrong that they just appropriate somebody else's art and uses their medium to then make a product.
And then I think the last thing we'll say about LEDs in totality is it's often marketed as an efficient light source, which is not true. They're not safer than neon. They're not more efficient, especially if you do it by lumen. Neon is officially recognized as a green light source because it doesn't really take that much energy to power them for long periods of time, especially when you're going for brightness. So very large signs are, and how long they last, yes, very, very large signs are highly efficient. They run really well when they're made out of neon. You're never gonna get that same amount of brightness in as nice of a way when using just LEDs.
Another good question snuck its way in there. Do you guys have a favorite piece of neon in the wild in the area, like outside the building?
Like in Tacoma?
Or yeah, Greater Puget Sound.
Greater Puget Sound. I think I'm always a sucker for pink elephant signs. They're very, very classic. I'm biased because I've made a lot of signs in Seattle, and I hate every one of them. Like the Pickwick sign in Seattle, Uncle Ike's. Oh, I take it back. My favorite neon sign is the Room 75 Cents near Pioneer Square. We all have matching tattoos of that sign. It's so silly. It looks good. It's about 1 billion years old.
Flying Boot Bar over on, that's a great sign. Johnson's Candy Company, another great sign. Java Jive, Bob's Java Jive used to have a contour line of red neon all the way around it. What else on the bucket list? Oh, the red piano down on Tacoma Ave.
Yeah.
That's a great one. And there's one on South Tacoma Way that was like it's the Totem Room. Yeah. There's no neon on it anymore. It's just a can and it's painted, but it's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, good Lord, it gets me weak in the knees. The Poodle Dog. What's the one with the clock? The pub. Oh God, when we. You Betcha Pub. There it is. You Betcha. It's got a clock on it on both sides. That's a great one. Oh yeah, Renko's Drug Store. That's a pretty good one. All sorts of Silverstone. Silverstone.
I do have an absolute favorite. It's a pair of signs. There's a dive bar in Capitol Hill, Seattle called Montana, and there's not very much signage for it except about a 2x2 square of the outline of the shape of Montana. But as soon as you walk in, there's a sign that says excuse the explicitive, Tana, and I think that that's just a beautiful way to use neon. I love the, just a very small, simple one. As soon as you enter, you get blasted with a very loud sign.
So I wanted to throw that question in there because what's been impactful for me, we've been learning a lot about neon here, is that it is something we see every day, especially if you live in a city. And I appreciate, knowing more about the hands and people behind it. So my question to wrap things up is what you guys hope, what you hope happens to neon by integrating it into a more traditional studio glass setting.
Neon in its entirety has ebbed and flowed throughout its lifespan. It started as an art form back in the late 1800s. Its first commercial usage was a complete failure. It ended up not being utilized at all. And artists have really taken it over, but through its commercial life, it became a very closed guild for a long time. There's a whole lost generation of neon benders where no one knows how to bend. So right now there's new blood in the water because artists are taking it up. And so the way to keep our medium alive is by people utilizing it more and being able to utilize it more and have access to it. And so I think we want to see access happen and it to be integrated more into artistic education. It's a great way to learn hard and soft skills like patience, critical thinking, problem solving. It's really a medium that will teach you a lot about yourself, as well as how to integrate it into your own voice.
I think a great aspect of it is every neon sign you see out there is made by a set of hands. There's no machine that you type open and out it comes. There's a set of hands behind every tube bent out there, and you can't make just neon tube and call it a day. It has to rely on other mediums and materials to be a finished piece. So as an artist, for me, it makes me realize that nothing's sacred as a medium to be creative with. So it teaches you a lot about craftsmanship, different ways of working with mediums and materials, and it's practical too. It gives you light. Light is a great attribute, and we like that a lot. Also, it teaches you to be an electrician. That's not going out of style anytime soon. So even if everything goes and we're all taking down a bunch of pegs, I still have that little feather in my hat. Along with how to bend sheet metal or be a carpenter or bend plastic or on and on and on and on. So, or hang off the side of a building. But it's all done by a set of hands, and I think that's something very respected.
I mean, they pretty much covered it all, but I mean, in terms, my personal goal is for neon just to be incorporated and seen as a glass medium, because typically it's seen as just a form of signage, and I really want to see it just integrated into the glass community as whole, and just kind of bridge those gaps, so more opportunities for collaboration, plasma, and all of those types of things.
Thanks, you guys. Can you join me in giving gas-filled tube suckers a big round of applause? We really appreciate it. And as you guys leave, if you want to see more of their work, they have been very dynamically building an installation in our Grand Hall window. So if you want to take an up-close look at what their neon looks like as they're working on it, it's right there up front. But we're going to take a short lunch break, and we'll be back at about 2:15. So thank you guys all for being there so much. If there are any moms in the crowd, happy Mother's Day. It's so nice to have you all here.